Today in the news, wild AMD rumors, DDR5 is tight, and Xbox has the velocity. What's up guys, I'm Snows, and this is your boot sequence. Let's get started with AMD, and I just want to say right off the bat, this is a wild rumor alert, so grain of salt please. So, on Monday, YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead received some information about Big Navi, and if true, will be pretty impressive. Now, his particular sources have been accurate in the past, according to him, so let's take a look at what all the fuss is about. This variant his source spoke about has a die size of 427mm squared. It would offer 72 CUs divided into two 36 CU clusters, and it would have GDDR6 memory with a bus width of 384 bits. The clocks would be 2050 MHz for the game clock with a boost of 2150 MHz. Power consumption wise, it would be roughly 300 watts, and it would release with no dedicated hardware for ray tracing or deep learning, or at least there were no mentions of it. This would make it about 40 to 50% faster than the 2080 Ti, according to his source. Now, to me, this might be a little bit sketch. Earlier, I mentioned variant because so far all the leaks point to the highest end Navi 2X featuring 80 CUs with a 505mm squared die. This leak is odd since that would mean this variant would be a different chip than Navi 21 or the biggest Navi. Maybe the newly leaked Navi 22 or maybe even 23. Both Nvidia and AMD do this though. They reuse the same chip for multiple cards and simply disable the SMs, but they still have the same die size. So is this leak debunked because of that? I mean, not really. Who knows? Maybe AMD's yields are so good that they can afford to segment chips with such a small difference in compute units. As for performance against a 2080 Ti, in my opinion, it better be at least 30 to 40% faster than a 2080 Ti. That card is on a 2-year-old architecture, has fewer shaders, has lower clocks, so yeah, it better outclass it, especially if AMD is looking into competing in the highest end of GPUs. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. In memory news, it looks like the JEDEC specs for DDR5 has finally been finalized. The finalization of the specs is new, but in case you didn't know, DDR5 actually brings in some major changes to memory. The two biggest ones are power and channel management. First, the power. In DDR4, the voltage is regulated by the motherboard, so it was possible for your PC to not be able to run the DOCP or XMP profiles, even if the CPU could, because the motherboard couldn't handle it. So now, not only is it more efficient than DDR4, DDR5 now has power management built into a PMIC chip that takes care of that, removing the burden from the motherboard manufacturers. The second thing is channel management. DDR5 can actually run in dual channel mode, but with a single stick. The left and right side of the stick can act as independent channels and both be powered by the PMIC. That means quad channel memory could become standard once this comes to desktop PCs. Or even weirder, we could see RTX motherboards with a single slot. Now that is something that I'd like to see. I kind of want to do a video on DDR5 versus DDR4 because there's quite a lot more things that are pretty interesting and could change PCs in the future. Let me know what you think of that down below. Moving on, we got Xbox. Yesterday, the company released a video on their YouTube channel accompanied by a blog post talking about the new Xbox architecture, aka the Velocity architecture. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, the video is pretty much just 2x that and 2.5x this. But as I read the blog post, I was kind of surprised. Up to now, the Xbox team was mostly talking about perks of the system and some of its features, but it was mostly on the surface level. It was an overview after all. I'd recommend you read the entire blog post as it has some valuable information. But it mostly talks in a little more details about some features like the new Direct Storage API, which is coming to DirectX 2. The new API is meant to lower latency and prioritize game data. Then there's their hardware decompression, which can double the performance of the SSD. That's something that we already knew about, but still, I don't know how far it can reach. For example, Sony's Kraken decompression is typically between 30 to 40%, but Mark Cerny mentioned that it can go all the way up to 75% if the data compresses particularly well, whereas Microsoft really only gave us the 2:1 compression ratio figure. They also talked about sampler feedback streaming, which allows the GPU to have access to textures as soon as possible to avoid texture popping and noticeable LOD changes. All in all, it's an interesting, shallow dive into not only the console world, but what could be coming to PCs via either DirectX or GPU/CPU hardware optimization. Anyways, guys, that is pretty much it for the catch-up. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Drop a like if you liked it, a comment if you want to talk about today's stories. As usual, you can click right here to see the latest video right here. To subscribe to the channel, stay frosty, my dudes, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.